So I'm gonna talk about these two courses first to explain. I was part of two of the courses with Bob and Wendy. One was the Resilient State Becomes the Focus on Family Farming, Mato Grosso, and then the Tecan Network. So this first experience that I'm going to talk is connected to how we were applying the things from the HECAM, especially from the HECAM network, was kind of my case study. And then I came here to reflect in it, and then I started talking to people and ended up applying to a PhD here. So it all started there. And the other one is more, I was not a part of it, but I know a little bit and Bob can help me. So it was Bob, Gabriel, which is a PhD student also in geography, and Denise Mello, who So the first one is a course that we call Formação de Lideranças Socioambientais, which was this course about leadership in municipal level. We bring together a few municipalities. So what happened was I was working in this NGO ICV, which is a regional NGO that works in Mato Grosso state, and they were pushing for this with other NGOs too, and I think it's connected to a program that went to the government and actually didn't follow up. So they were trying to create this program to incentivize municipalities to become green and to become sustainable. And we were developing this program, and we were thinking that the people in the ground need to implement this program. So how can we do something to help build this leadership in the ground to actually implement all these huge activities and ideas that were happening? So we developed this program for a group of municipalities in green, which is in the north of Mato Grosso. We call this region Portal da Amazônia, which is the portal of the Amazon. And we also tried more specific GIS and environmental management programs that we did directly with the local government, but also wanted to create this leadership course. And so we created it, and our main goal was to train the environmental leaders to become the change agents in the ground. And so what we tried, and the people that we had in this group had 23 people, and it was a whole process of trying to find people in those municipalities that had the time to go into these 3 model courses. So it was one thing that we really tried to do is to have a balance between women and men. So gender was sort of one of our criteria too. And the other criteria is that we had different sectors. So we were trying to have, we had farmers, indigenous people from mining companies, the teachers, local government, civil society. So we're trying to have this mixed, diverse group that we will get together. And so this is just a little bit how we were thinking about. So we were having this first step of thinking in selecting people while also designing this new course. And we had 3 models. One was focused on system, the other was focused on conflict, and the last one, good governance, and we had intermodal activities. And we wanted after to continue with it. And so one step was to systematize all the information and have a publication. The other was to have a post-course meeting, like bringing these people together and trying to see, do we want to continue to get together? Is this a network or not? And if it is emerged from the group, to continue to create this local, regional leadership network. But you know, things are harder than this initial planning idea. So more specific about the course, what we tried to do, we were bridging this part of ICV that was part of the connected with UF and the system thinking a lot. So, but also a lot of people from ICV also participate in other courses focused on human development and leadership. It's called Germinar. It's quite famous in Brazil, and it's really focusing on anthroposophy. The ideas and a lot of we need to build the human development, the person, but we wanted not just focus on the person, but the person in the system and the political and all the influences in the government. So we were trying to build, and I think it's one of the coolest things that we did in terms of developing this new course and this new methodology that bridges these 2 parts. And so it was quite cool. And what we did in the course was we were trying to go through some concepts and have mixed type of methodologies and also work with skills and vision. So in terms of concepts, we talk about socio-ecological system, leadership, sustainability, conflict, and governance, which is kind of like John Day's class that I'm teaching again this semester, and skills and vision in terms of system analysis, being able to have a diagnosis of the municipality, work with facilitation, conflict management, and planning. So they were learning things. Each of those models had 3 days. They had to do something, implement, and then go back, present, and super, really, really cool. And I think one of the main things, and what we learned from this process, one very important thing, and I'm trying not to get too much into there because I could talk hours about this course. One thing that we were really excited about this new methodology of bringing those two things, and I think it fitted very well, and I think it was really interesting to see the process, the change of some people during the course. We had, for example, one guy he didn't want to be there, and someone appointed him, which was not what we were trying to do. We tried to do a selection process that people who were willing, but then someone didn't went. He ended up there, and he was like, I hate this place. And the first model, he was the one with the worst evaluations ever. And then the second and third, he was super engaged. And actually, he was one of the persons that after was more excited about his role. He was the Secretary of Education in one municipality. So it was really interesting to see how we could engage those people and think about the system and how their role in the system. So, but also, this thing I was talking about the selection process, we tried to do a snowball sample, and then the methodology got too hard, and a lot of the people couldn't come. And for example, making the family agriculture person to leave their farm to go to the city, to go to another city and stay 3 days out is really, really, really hard. And so this was one challenge to get the family farmers, definitely. But also we were thinking we need to have a clear criteria of the profile of person, what kind of leaders we want, and also be open, which we were not, about uncertainty. Sometimes you do all this criteria, but in the work, so some people that you were not expecting can be the person that would enjoy the most. So also be open to uncertainty, which is an important thing in complex systems. And also the balance between content and practical activity. There's people who like more the really, really intense, more of the concepts, and people who like to practice and also never really go make everybody happy. But some people thought there was too much practical, so in people, some wanting a bit more of conceptual part. And also we created this project to build in this program, but the program, while we were doing this course, the state program, the municipal state program, was starting to not actually being embraced by the government. And I personally had a lot of criticism about the program, and I think this helps. We end up not actually making the link between the program and the policy with the project, which can be good or bad. I think we need to analyze it more, but also the policy never actually was implemented. So we could have built this whole network, and if the policy doesn't come, maybe people would be frustrated as well, or they could make this more resilient and make the changes and actually implement something. And the question with all these courses is, did it work? Did people actually change? And so it was actually one of my motivation to come here and to start to do an evaluation of this, but I totally changed the way of my thinking right now in terms of my PhD. But I think it's really important to know and to follow up in this. And we did a 1-year course meeting, which we're super excited. In my other version of my presentation, I put a picture that we took, and people started using like a hashtag, now we're a network. So they were excited about having this network, and there was a connection. This courses really bring a connection between people. And what happened is the NGO didn't have funding to continue. We tried to find, I who was the person who was leading, came here, and the people who continued there didn't have the same connection, I guess, with the course as much as I did, and they never actually follow up. And even the publication that I wrote and spent many, many times is not even their website, and I keep like sending them emails, please at least put it on the website. But, you know, exactly. So it's quite complex to make those things continue. But it's all very interesting. For example, 2 of the guys of the courses are now like councilmen, is that how you call vereadores in the municipalities? So they have important roles, and some other went to the state. But also the other day I saw some ladies posting things pro Bolsonaro in Facebook, and I said, oh my God, we didn't change. So it's not enough. So this other oficina de desenvolvimento econômico was in APUÍ, in the state, which is almost border with the north of Mato Grosso, in the south of Amazonas, and was developed by IDESAN with support of WF. And it was quite different. It was not such a different model. It was 5 days workshop, and so yeah, this is APUÍ here in the region, which is also a big frontier. And so IDESAN has a big history of working there for some time, and they work mainly with this agroforestry chains, and actually not just agroforest, but sustainable chains. So they work with civil pastoral and agroforest, a lot of free coffee, and trying to develop some better practices. But then they were seeing that maybe we want to do something more about governance, not just looking at the chain itself. So part of the strategy was having this workshop with different participants from different leaders from different places. So there was people from the government, from the private sector, agriculture, union, NGOs, and others. And the idea was to have this space of a preliminary dialogue and bringing these people together to maybe they could continue this. And so we strengthened the social capital among them and help them have this notion about the socio-ecological system and facilitate the discussions of them future to think about the development of the municipality. And the tools was also very similar to the ones that we use in the other course in terms of looking at the history of doing a timeline of and I think Wendy will probably talk about making a timeline of the municipality, looking at the system and stakeholder analysis, and also you did this scenarios also, thinking about a good scenario and a bad scenario for the municipality, how we could go into having a good scenario for APUÍ. And yeah, these are some of the pictures of the activities they did. And the timeline, they were thinking about the process of infrastructure, land use, social organization, public policies. This is a region that have an interesting, they started with a lot of the public influencing the settlement, creating of settlements in the region, but after with time, and it's a little bit different from other frontier regions in the Amazon, they start to come in a lot of cattle ranchers with money to develop the region, and so it's quite of a rich region, so there's a lot of big cattle ranching in the region, and so they look at all these complexities about it. And also like building the timeline also you see when you got there and how this was part of your history, so there's all this connection with it. And they're also thinking about the stakeholder relationship. So who are the stakeholders, how is their unidirectional relationship, how is this a good, is a bad, so it's kind of stakeholder analysis. This is the example for the perspective of culture. And so here there's one thing that I think it's important, they identify the municipal environmental council that we have in Brazil. All municipalities are supposed to have those councils as a space to continue the dialogue. And they saw two young leaders that could be people who help this, but as a little bit similar to ours, it didn't have the funding to continue those types of activities there. And it's also this issue. And so the cell didn't, I don't know how it is right now, but didn't develop as much. And so there was no, and also those people came a little like, what is this course? I don't know a little, and bringing them and having their voice and their history and talk about that, really engage them to continue all the days, like 5 days of workshop is not easy to keep people a whole week doing this course. So, and also resilience, which is a big part of the program, and their work were not addressed in this course. And I think one of the reflections about we were talking about, should we include resilience in this, and would this be more effective to make the connection with governance and as a tool? That was it that I had for the 2 case studies. And again, the question is also how this connects to governance and how these courses actually bring the change and how we know that this like how do we measure and keep and having follow-up to continue, so make sure that there is this connection.